UNICEF says that it has also seen widely shared and shocking images of 2-year-old girl thrown from a building to be saved from the fire in Durban, with other social media content showing the participation of children in looting. We are now joined by UNICEF South Africa's Chief of Children Protection and Social Policy, Mayke Huijbregts, to talk to us about the impact of the unrest on children. Well, a very good afternoon to you, Mayke. Thank you so very much for availing yourself, as always, to us here on SABC News. A very sad situation, and what we've seen throughout the week. I mean, those visuals that stood out for me, of course, in particular, that child being thrown to a crowd as the building was burning. I also saw a video of a small boy who went looting, and really that was very touching on very many levels. The fact that he really was looting because he didn't have clothes. He went to go get, basic essentials, underwear, something that children shouldn't even be thinking about. I mean, what does this say about our society? I mean, that just to me paints a very sad picture about where we are as a country.
Thank you so much, Flo, for this opportunity. And nice to see Steve in the previous one.
Yeah.
So we are very concerned about these high levels of violence that swirl the country this week, and the looting that happened, and the high levels of violence that children were exposed to, but also experienced, and also participated in some of the looting. So as we reported a month ago, is that the mental health and distress of young people was already high then, but now after this week, the fear levels of children has tremendously augmented, and this is exacerbated with what they see on TV, what they are exposed to social media, but also with anxiety of their parents losing livelihoods, or perhaps having participated in the looting and might become arrested, and so on. So we see an enormous increase in fear amongst children, distress, children being unsettled, and are more than ever in much higher need of this nurturing care environment that we always talk about. And that is very urgent.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about then the sort of reports that have come to your office, in terms of the observations of what the plight of what children have had to deal with during this time. I mean, what are the kind of stories? I mean, you're talking about the fact that, children might be concerned about those who take care of them being arrested and so forth for taking part in the looting, which then in fact becomes a secondary issue, doesn't it? I mean, I saw a gentleman being arrested who, had apparently, allegedly stolen things like, essentials, food for a child, nappies, things like that. I mean, what are some of the things that are coming to your desk that you're hearing about what's happening now?
Well, in addition to the looting, we also hear cases of child sexual abuse, of rape that had happened as part of the violence. We saw similar reports as yourselves, but also an inability of timely response by social service professionals on the ground to address these higher levels of distress amongst children. And therefore it will be very, very important for all of us to look at the concerted action of civil society and government to unite and to provide the necessary support through the deployment of child and youth care workers, to do the counseling and the referrals of children, to follow up with all the social service professionals, and work together with ECD care practitioners, that health workers, etc., as to address these high levels of mental health distress that children are facing. We saw, of course, the early lockdown of schools because of COVID infections. This is the second time we are facing a lockdown, school closures and school holiday. That has led to distress. But also the vaccination program got to a halt this week, which is so incredibly important as to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. So it's incredibly important to restore an element of normalcy, with urgency and safety for all children.
Yeah, you talk about restore, a normal situation. Let's talk about the long-term impacts in terms of the kind of impacts this will have on children, this sort of lawlessness and criminal activities, and indeed where in some instances children were encouraged to participate and take part in this looting. I mean, obviously the impact, the devastation is immediate and we can see it now, but one wonders in the long term, what you foresee in terms of what impact this would then have on these children who have had to see and be involved in what we saw.
Well, you see, Flo, what this intergenerational cycle of violence has been there for a very long time, and what we are learning from it is that that violence breeds violence and exacerbates further violence. So children do copy behaviors of adults, and the impact of this high level of trauma paralyzes the brain. And when you live in fear, you can't think, you can't play, you can't be free to grow and develop and nurture into that very productive and resilient adolescent. So we can see, bedwetting, anxiety, depression, insomnia, but we have also received reports of child sexual abuse up to 10% of children, with children having intentions to commit suicide of those children. So these are terrible statistics that we have to address with urgency and look at the healing of a nation at all levels, starting with adults, to stop the spiral of violence, and to really create a loving and nurturing environment by talking about the fear, talking about the experiences, allow children to vent their anxiety, and create professionals that are able to talk to them through child lines, through the child and youth care workers, through the whole social service professional workforce, so that they can talk about it. But also parents, we need to address this mental health and train parents, caregivers, ECD caregivers on psychosocial support, address trauma, and know how to deal with trauma and pick up signals of distress.
All right, Mayke, thank you very much for being with us and giving us your time once again here on SABC News. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Mayke Huijbregts, who is the UNICEF South Africa Chief of Child Protection and Social Policy, as we talk about the plight of children in this time of unrest, and certainly look into the long-term effects of things like these on children.